everyone. Welcome back to Trending in Hollywood. Who would ever have thought that Scott Menzel would be trending in Hollywood? Never going to happen. Never does happen.
Happening now. It's happening now.
That does it. And I'm joined by Demetri Panos.
We're always trending in Hollywood.
Oh,
always.
Yeah.
Always. Not on a good trend, but hey, what do they say? There's no such thing as bad press. So there's no such thing as bad trends.
I would think that people disagree with that statement at this point.
Yeah, well, you never know.
Anywho, we're going to jump right into the busy news week, and we're going to start off with something that we left as a cliffhanger at the end of last week's episode, and that is bum, 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 Godzilla versus Kong. All right, so we were under embargo last show that we couldn't really talk that much about this movie. I'm going to let Demetri take this one away first because he is the connoisseur of Godzilla between the two of us.
Yes, between the two of us. So picking up from last week, just gonna say I really had a good time with Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, albeit, many people have complained about the past kaiju movies. I've enjoyed them from Godzilla to Skull Island to Godzilla King of Monsters. I've had a good time. But many people like yourself, they've complained about the human element, about the human narrative, about it being practically non-existent. Well, this one doesn't disappoint in that, and I think it's the least non-existent of the entire series. But I'm not looking for a story about the human condition here. This is the movie. It delivered what it said it was going to deliver. I think it's rock'em sock'em fun, and it pays wonderful respect and homage to the Toho wackiness and goodness, from having things like, we could talk plot about Hollow Earth. We could talk about like various military agencies, whether they're covert or whatever. We could talk about Titan telepathy, but it would be nonsensical. I would rather talk about how fun this movie was to watch, and it was an oasis in a series of drama-heavy movies that I've seen within the past months. And Adam Wingard did a really, it was a popcorn, it was like a multicolored popcorn or a technicolor popcorn feast for the eyes, and it was a lot of fun. If you like action movies, he pays wonderful homage to many. I'm not going to name them here because it'll make it so easy to point out when you're watching the movie. But I loved these two fighting it out. It lives up to its name. They don't waste time. That's another thing. They don't waste time in letting these two get together and duke it out. Look, the story is Toho type silliness. So you're either in or you're out. I bought the ticket. I didn't buy the ticket. I saw it at home. But this is a movie that if I felt comfortable enough to go to a theater, I would love to have seen this in a theater. On a quick side note, I can add, I am vaccinated. I've gotten, we've talked about this on the show. I got the Johnson & Johnson shot earlier this week. I'm waiting my 2-week period so that it fully is interspersed throughout my body. So hopefully can go to a movie theater with some sense of being comfortable. In any case, if you are comfortable, I recommend Godzilla vs. Kong to see it on a big screen because it's huge. And I think it's really, really a great, fun popcorn movie. Check your brain in at your kitchen counter or at the concession stand if you go to the theater, and just go have a good time. You've deserved it.
There you go. You earned it. Look at that.
You earned it.
I'm going to echo Demetri. I mean, if you're a fan of Godzilla or King Kong movies, I think this movie will make you very, very happy. If you're a fan of like a Steven Spielberg character-driven monster movie, you are going to be very, very disappointed. So know what you're getting. And if you watch the trailers or if you've seen any of these previous entries, whether it's Kong Skull Island or the last King of Monsters movie, know that it delivers on all the best parts of those movies, the ones that everyone was talking about, the big fight scenes. That's what this movie delivers on, and it delivers on that multiple times throughout the film. The human characters, minus Kaylee, who is the little girl in the movie, all pretty much non-existent, awful, probably the worst of all the movies.
I liked Rebecca Hall.
Yeah, she was
Rebecca Hall.
Okay. I mean, I think it goes to show how strong of an actress she is, because like she kind of makes the material stand out, even though it's not really well written.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. Fair point. But I think you needed her for the Gia character to be like that mother type figure. And I think together, I think you'd agree they added. Actually, it's it's the Troika. It's Rebecca Hall, this Kaylee who's Gia, and then Kong. They end up being sort of kind of the heart of the movie.
Yeah. You watched this again.
I did.
Welcome, new member Tessa Smith. She's commenting on the show, basically saying Godzilla vs. Kong, absolute blast. Wasn't it 40 minutes before they met? I can't remember. Was it that long?
I think it was 20. I don't think it was that long, because it went from, okay, if folks are watching and you have a little bit of spoiler timeline, if I am correct, we open up sort of kind of on Skull Island. I don't know why it's pouring on Skull Island. I don't know if that was supposed to be an environmental commentary. Like, I don't know what the hell happened on Skull Island where they had to put Kong in a shield, but whatever. Godzilla attacks Florida. Then there's the whole thing about this hollow world where this disgraced scientist, and he's like, well, I know somebody who can help, because there's this pneumatic memory kind of thing. He's thinking Kong can lead them to Hollow Earth, and they bring Kong out, and like all of that happens pretty quickly. Like I don't recall that it took that long for the Titans to number one, to wreak havoc, because Kong like takes a tree stump more or less to break in his containment center. Godzilla attacks Florida, like, and this is all within the openings of the movie, and then they fight after that. So there really was no waste of time of introducing us to our Titans.
Yeah, I guess even if it was, I mean, I don't remember exactly because it's going on a couple weeks now, but even if it was 30 to 40 minutes in, I think the better aspect of this movie was the fact that there was more character, like the characters we talk about, aka the monsters, Godzilla and Kong, appearing before humans going on like, oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm talking about something that no one cares about right now, blah, 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 blah. So yeah,
but that was like a Toho staple.
Yeah.
Like where these kaiju came from, like whether it was some mysterious island on Earth or somewhere out of space, like that silliness is all like Toho. And I mean, I neglect to say like what perhaps is the biggest spoiler. I just don't know how many people have viewed it on TV already, but there's something that's really big that happens that's really big in the Toho universe as well, that comes into the fray, you know. But listen, what Toho gave us though was great vehicles, like those how do you? It's just like we're gonna throw it. It's inverse gravity machine but the thing looked like it came right out of Tron, right? Yeah. And with all the neon, and then speaking of neon, Jesus, it was like cotton candy neon when they went to Hong Kong, and that fight was amazing. In my review, in my video review, I said it's like if Lee Whannell had directed a Rocky fight scene, like with his perspectives, add the neon buildings and stuff. That's what you get in that final 40 minutes. Like that's a long fight scene, and I didn't bore of it. Like I wasn't like I didn't get a headache from it. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Well, I also think, you were talking about this. We talked about this off air. Was the fact that the movie almost plays in certain respects like a video game or like a theme park ride, right? Where you're sort of like going on an adventure with these characters and you're kind of waiting to get there. And I think that's the aspect of the movie that I like the most. I mean, I wish I had some better characters to be on this journey with. But at the same time, at least I feel like I got the payoff that I wanted. I feel like when I watched the previous movies, I didn't really get the payoff I wanted. I was just kind of like, there was so much build up to it. And then by the time the stuff happened that I really signed up for, it wasn't enough of it. I just felt really disappointed by it.
Yeah. And I did enjoy the previous 3 movies, albeit I would argue that Garth Edwards' Godzilla was a little bit of a bait and switch. Kind of, they sold it in the trailers as one movie and it was another movie. Because for me, when it comes to like Godzilla, there's kind of 2 types. There's Godzilla the Destroyer, where he just comes and obliterates Tokyo with no opposition, pretty much. And then there's the Godzilla verse. So it's Godzilla versus Mothra, Godzilla versus Ghidorah. Like they made all these movies. The first one was a Godzilla verse movie where he's fighting monsters that we hadn't even been introduced to before. But then Skull Island, I felt, captured a ton of great goodness. And I thought there were a lot of fun characters in Skull Island, and they developed Monarch a little more. And then we go into King of All Monsters, where again, especially when you look at, why can't I think of her name? Millie Bobby Brown's character, like you had that family dynamic there. Like they had more to do. Granted, look, straight up, she and Kyle
Chandler.
Chandler. I was gonna say. Yeah. Hey, listen, I hope they got paid well. I mean, he was in the movie. What was that, a day shoot? And she was in the movie for 2 days, maybe. Like, it was really interesting to bring these characters back. To me, that was the most shocking thing. You brought these characters back to virtually really not do a whole heck of a lot. And I felt King of All Monsters actually lent something to the story. But in any case, I just think that this movie, for what it is, delivers, and I think it's a ton of fun.
Yeah. I will agree with you. I mean, this is a movie that I think if you haven't seen it, I'll be completely honest. I don't know if I liked it enough that I would actually go out of my way to see it on the big screen now that I saw it, but I would have preferred to see it on the big screen the first time that I saw it. I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more because I would have been immersed a little bit in the scenes and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But I don't think I liked it enough where I would be like, oh yeah, I want to go out and go see it again. I think it's different now that I have with HBO Max. If I wanted to play it and kind of watch certain scenes that I liked, I don't know if I would be inclined to actually go and watch the whole movie in its entirety.
I did. I enjoyed it. Like as usually happens, its strengths and weaknesses come more to the forefront on a multiple viewing. It didn't take away from my enjoyment, and being that HBO Max too is also tied into my favorite cable channel, Turner Classic Movies. They, I think on Wednesday, sometime this week they did a whole Godzilla King Kong kind of theme. Like they played the original King Kong, they played the original two versions of Godzilla, the Japanese and the American version of Godzilla, and things like that. So that was kind of fun. I got into it all, and it inspired me to rewatch this movie. I wish I had seen it on a big screen, because I think the sound and the visuals alone, to have seen it on a Dolby theater, it really would have looked really good. It could look, Academy Awards, special effects, maybe. I mean, the special effects were good. You can't.
You can't deny that. No.
And you mentioned amusement park ride. I was thinking that it reminded me of Back to the Future so many times. Like when they were flying, like when he grabs them and like he's looking into that the anti-gravity or inverse gravity ships. Like I was like going, oh, this is Back to the Future. I'm in an amusement ride. If I was in 4DX right now, I'd be, right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right.
Yeah. So Wing Dog knew what he was doing.
We're not alone, because this movie is doing something that I think no other movie so far has been able to do at the box office, and that is it's getting a lot of money. It's getting a lot of eyeballs. We talked a little bit about the international box office last week, and right now we're already up to 16.3 in just the first 2 days. First, a real quick point. A lot of people need to know this, and they don't realize it, is that up until this past week, most movie theaters in LA were still closed. AMC was like one of the only chains that were open. Now we have some of the Regals have opened. We have the Cinemark started to open. And I think in the next couple weeks, we'll see the ArcLights and the Landmarks and all those start to open. So you need to realize that based on a budget of the movie, we realize that that's not that much for a big budget movie like this. 16.7 is not as the number we want to see, but it's a step in the right direction. And when you know that a lot of these theaters that people go to or frequent here in LA are still closed, and that theaters are only at 20%, they will be going to 50% next week. You're going to see that number continue to grow.
Yeah, and apparently, according to the Hollywood Reporter, it's saying more than 93% of the U.S. marketplace is now in play. Marketplace meaning areas in which theaters are allowed to open. It's not saying 93% of theaters. And to your point, I think that this is we talked about this last week from an international perspective. It's a really good, it's a decent barometer. And it only took Warner Brothers 3 tries to figure out what movie would work best in theaters. They started off with Tenet, and then came Wonder Woman during Christmas, and we're in the middle of a surge during the Christmas. And now with Godzilla vs. Kong, we are seeing a trend upwards, and I think it's hopeful. I said the same thing last week. I just believe it's hopeful. People wanting to get out. Look, this doesn't mean don't be careful. Like I said, I got vaccinated this week. I'm waiting my 2 weeks. I don't want to push it. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get it. Like I want to go back to a theater. I know the AMC in Century City out here in Los Angeles is open. So I'm looking forward to seeing a movie back in a movie theater. And I think this bodes well, that because the other thing you have to think about, Scott, right, is it did almost $10 million on a Wednesday.
Yeah, that's huge.
So that's not bad, right? Spring break, we're not a fully open country yet. Right. In fact, we're the only country in the entire world that's continuing to open where others are shutting down because of variants, right? But another thing to think about this weekend is it's Easter weekend. Easter weekend has a history, a history of drops when it comes to grosses. So today being Good Friday, you could expect a drop because people are either worshiping, they're doing their thing, and then Easter, you know, I don't. The CDC today said, look, if you're fully vaccinated, you and your family are vaccinated, you could spend Easter together, but be careful. So traditionally, Easter is not a strong box office weekend. My guess is they'll have a lot of streaming going on. I'm sure they'll be in the billions when it comes to those streaming numbers. You know, they're going to say it went bananas over streaming.
Well, I think there's a good segue into that. You mentioned this. So the placeholder for this weekend is actually Batman v Superman, which did 81.6 million in 2016, followed by Universal's Furious 7, which was in 2015 with 67.4. Both those numbers not too shabby. But that segues us into this topic, which is toxic fandom. And, it's kind of funny because I saw someone in the chat was asking us how we felt about this news. So we're going to tie these two together. So Demetri, you shared a story with me the other day, and I think this is a good way to start this off about you consider yourself a big time Star Wars fan. And
sure.
There was a Star Wars movie that came out a few years ago that sort of got the attack of the Phantom.
Mm-hmm.
The Phantom.
The Phantom. Yeah, it was the Fandom menace.
Yeah, exactly.
Truly, the Fandom menace attacked this movie. And I believe the movie you're talking about is Solo.
Yep.
Solo was really hit hard by toxic Star Wars fandom. I witnessed it. And toxic fandom has become such a thing now that it's easy to be negative, and there is a good percentage of those people who are being negative about a property or a movie, and they've never seen the movie. Okay, they've never seen it. I know this for a fact because I was in line at my local theater, and behind me, I heard two people talking about Solo, and they were talking about a particular plot point, like about how he got his name and everything. And they're going, "Wow, yeah, that sounds like really stupid." And then I turned around and I said, "Did you see the movie?" "No." I go, "Well, why don't you watch the movie? It's actually a really good movie." I found Solo to be a blast. It's a great Western. Ron Howard, I think, did a good job, but there was so much going around Solo that had this negative impact, and it affected the grosses. It really affected the grosses to where Disney changed everything. They went in a different direction. They canceled making like a Boba Fett movie and doing all of these sub movies because Solo didn't deliver. And then what's ended up happening is people, it's streaming on Disney Plus. They maybe bought it on Blu-ray or whatever, but people went ahead and discovered Solo post theatrical run, and people going, "Well, that was actually a pretty good movie." Yeah, no kidding, it was a good movie. But because of you, Disney had to scrap all their plans. Now, they went into a different direction because of toxic fandom. Big time.
Yeah. So obviously people in the chat agree with you that Solo was a lot of fun. So, I didn't hate Solo either. I'm not, everyone who watches the show or knows me at this point knows that I'm not no Star Wars fan. There is no Star Wars fan in me.
Really? I didn't know.
You didn't know? What a surprise.
You talk about the Mandalorian like 24/7.
Oh, yeah, I love that Baby Yoda.
You love that
Baby Yoda all the time. You see all those Baby Yoda collectibles behind me. There's so many.
I do. I
do. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think with fandom, I don't know why everyone can't just agree to disagree with it. And someone was saying, I think Zachary was saying, fans versus fanatics. I think that's a key thing as well to discuss. I would consider I'm more of a fan of things more than I'm a fanatic about any of this stuff. Unless when it comes to like early Tim Burton movies, then I'm a fanatic. But reality is that I believe that you can like something and not like something, and they can be in the same universe.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to be honest. So everyone is apeshit about WandaVision. I watched WandaVision, first 3 episodes, womp womp. 4th episode was fantastic. 5th episode started going downhill. By the time the show ended, I was kind of like, this is mediocre. And I know that is a different opinion than the masses online. But that doesn't mean that I hate Marvel. I just was not impressed with this. And I'm even less impressed with Falcon Winter Soldier. So I'll say that now. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to watch Loki and love Loki. Or hate Loki. I don't know yet. I haven't seen it. We had this conversation last week about how I love Snyder Cut, but I hated Suicide Squad. I don't understand this hatred that people have towards these fandoms and when they collide. Like what some of the Snyder Cut people were doing this week with trying to take down Godzilla versus Kong. Like, that's bad behavior that should not be rewarded. What they did to help suicide prevention, that's great behavior, which people should acknowledge and appreciate and sort of like, yes, we should kind of listen. Look at this. They're doing it for a cause. So there's good and bad behavior attached to this stuff. And I would recommend that if you want to do anything for fandom, you do it in a positive light. And you appreciate those who have different opinions. And you kind of move on from that. You can agree to disagree, which is a show that's coming soon to the HCA Network.
But I think though, if you're a fan, the best kind of fan is the honest fan.
Yes.
Okay. Is the honest fan to themselves and to a franchise. All right. Meaning, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I'm a really huge James Bond fan. For me to say, I love every single Star Trek episode, I'm just going to stick to movies. To say that I love every single Star Trek movie, it would be silly because they're not all equivocally great movies. I could rate them. I could say which one isn't particularly a good movie. I will watch it as kind of a guilty pleasure these days. But the same thing for me goes for James Bond. I mean, when you have so many movies in that library, I could point to movies that I'm not a fan of. It doesn't mean I don't like James Bond. It just means that this particular movie I thought was okay. And it's okay to do that. Not every movie within a franchise has to be, this is the best Marvel movie ever until the next Marvel movie comes out. And if somebody doesn't like said Marvel movie, doesn't make them a less of a Marvel fan. In fact, I think you're better off being honest than being a homer for it just blindly. And because I just don't find you being honest when you're trashing something you haven't seen. So to go out there and trash Godzilla vs. Kong, like that's silly. That's real. It's dopey, and they're not going to pay attention to you. Be thankful, and it's a double-edged sword. I think with what happened to the Snyder Cut, right? It was because of fandom that we more or less got this cut, this 4-hour version. Okay, that's a good thing. But now studios have to weigh, like, we kind of opened up a floodgate. We have to temper it. We have to, like, because we can't do this for every movie, because immediately this week, news or the past week and a half, it was coming out that, the David Ayer Suicide Squad version. No, no, it doesn't have to happen.
No, I agree. And the thing what I will say about the Snyder Cut is that there were circumstances that came into play there. I mean, we've talked about bad decisions that Warner Brothers made, but then there was suicide involved. There was having to step away from a project and not being able to complete even a half-ass version of what he wanted to do, right? Like, so I think if nothing happened to Autumn, if Autumn didn't pass, we would have gotten a half-ass version of Justice League regardless, because that's what we pretty much got with Batman v Superman. We got the half-ass version that they cut down, and then we got on Blu-ray, we got the cut that we wanted. So essentially, if that did not happen, I would think we would have a regular version of Justice League, and then we would have this 4-hour cut of Justice League that would have been released on Blu-ray.
Right. And this is what I don't understand either, is like, the physical content, you said Blu-ray.
Yeah.
That used to be the grounds in which the fans could get a director's cut of a movie.
And now it could be on streaming.
Now it could be on streaming. I don't understand why you want to release an Ayer cut, release it as a Blu-ray. I mean, James Cameron added to his career by releasing director's cuts on DVD and then Blu-ray of his movies, Aliens, The Abyss, Terminator 2, just to name a few. He's not the only director that has added. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan has a Nicholas Meyer director's cut as well. It's
Donnie
a library.
Darko.
Donnie Darko, and it's a library that you can mine and not only get the fans like going, ooh, you mean there's footage that I didn't see and it's going to make the movie, it could make the movie better. You could get other people's eyeballs on this as well. I don't understand why they don't just follow that formula and just put it on streaming.
Because it's been around because it's been a thing that Hollywood has been doing for a long time.
Really long time. I mean,
this was a weird situation that I think people are like looking at it, and they have to realize that as much as I do want to see too, that I want to see this continuation of what Zack Snyder created, you have to understand that there's so much bad blood with them at Warner Brothers, and it's whether it's the current executives or people from the past. It's sort of like they retooled everything. They're going in a different direction now. Now, that's not to say that this can't eventually happen on HBO Max, because it's a streaming platform and there's different universes like we talked about. But you can continue your path. You can continue to push for something. The only thing that I'm saying, and I'm speaking to you as someone who is a fan of Zack Snyder and a fan of his work, is don't be a dick about it. Just be appreciative that you got what you got so far. You can keep pushing, but don't start throwing other people on their bus. Don't attack. What's done is done. You can't hold a grudge against Warner Brothers for the rest of your life. They're going to put out other movies that you're going to like. I guarantee it. So just sort of take, you did your good. You got what you wanted. You can keep hoping and championing something. Let's hope it happens. If it doesn't, we'll move on. Zack Snyder's going to have a nice long history with Netflix. I would say that if they are seeing anything right now, Netflix knows that, like, we got him to do one movie. If that movie does well the first weekend in streaming land, there's no doubt that he's not going to be signed on to do another one. So,
absolutely.
So let's think of the positive. Let's look at everything.
Sure.
And one quick thing that I want to say, it doesn't just go to fandom, right? Like with just like a DC, Marvel, whatever. Two perfect examples for me. I am sitting here talking to you today because of Tim Burton. Like, I love Tim Burton. He's what inspired me to be involved in film. And all the crap behind me, most of it is Tim Burton related.
Except for the Baby
That
Yoda.
being said, Tim Burton has made bad movies. 100%. Like, Dark Shadows is not a good movie. And I love Johnny Depp. He's in that movie. That movie is bad. Alice in Wonderland, not so great either. I can say that, and I can still call myself a Tim Burton fan. I love Kristen Stewart. Kristen Stewart was in Twilight. And not all the Twilight movies are good. Some of them are better than others. I don't hate them. But again, they're not good movies. It's like a Godzilla vs. Kong. It's not a good movie, but it works for what it is. Just like Twilight works for a teenager demographic of like love and whatever they want, but it's not a good movie. But then Kristen Stewart did Adventureland and Personal Shopper, and she's great in those movies.
Panic Room.
Yeah, Panic Room. So you have
which was before Twilight.
She was really good in that too.
Yeah.
So you have, as a fan, or someone who would consider myself a hardcore fan of those, or my fandom would exist in those realms, I can still realistically look at someone or something that they've done and say, this wasn't your best. This wasn't your best. And there's nothing wrong with it. Doesn't make me any less of a fan. It doesn't make me any less excited to see Spencer coming out, or the Addams Family TV show on Netflix. I'm still looking forward to it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, again, it just goes back to what was said earlier. You have to be honest about it. You don't have to be a homer for every single thing that comes out. If they put out, if a direct, look, I'm a huge Steven Spielberg fan. Not all of his movies are great. Look, when you make as many movies as a Tim Burton and Steven Spielberg, even Martin Scorsese, he's got a couple of clunkers in there too. It's just the law of averages. They all can't be great. Doesn't mean that you can't be a fan. I want to go back to like Warner Brothers, though, from the beginning, they don't, especially after the Chris Nolan Batman movies, they really had no direction. They were trying to play catch up to Marvel. They didn't know really how to do it properly, and they haven't really figured out how to form this. And this is what our third. We already had a Superman movie. Superman Returns with right I forget okay, so that guy got scrapped, unfortunately. I liked him. Then we had the Man of Steel, and this was bringing in the Snyderverse, new Batman. This is after the Nolan Batman. We're going in this different way, and now they've yet again taken another curve. They're taking another path. It's almost like what Sony does with Spider-Man. It's like, let's reboot Spider-Man a bazillion times. Well, just try to figure out what you want to do and like where you're going. But they have no roadmap. They need to go to AAA and get a triptych to figure it all out, to tender loving care the franchise, the DC franchise.
Well, I think what they going for is that they need to realize that they can do their own thing, right? The Nolan movies were their own thing. It was kind of like it stood out. It was its own trilogy. It worked. People really liked those. I mean, I know people have issues with Dark Knight Rises. Some people have problems with Batman Begins. But again, it's an opinion. Everyone has an opinion. I personally think Dark Knight Rises is the best out of the three of them. Other people would say The Dark Knight because everyone loves Heath Ledger's Joker. Again, everyone's opinion. That's what's great about being an individual. But you don't have to follow a formula. If Marvel has their formula down pat, it works for them. And that's great because they have a person there who's basically has their hand in every single TV show and movie. Kevin Feige shows up at every single Marvel press day. He's there. He won't let anyone reveal any secrets. He's literally like the gatekeeper of all things Marvel. Right. DC doesn't have that. And that's not a bad thing. They just need to trust then their filmmakers and their writers to let them flesh out a story or a vision the way that they want it.
But it all depends on what Warner Brother wants, though. It all depends
so
on what they want. They don't know.
They don't know.
And to be fair, Marvel didn't know either. Marvel didn't know when they put out Iron Man where the hell that series was going to go. They were like, Iron Man was a hit. And they're like, oh my God, Iron Man was huge. Nobody expected Iron Man to do the numbers that it did. And then we got Iron Man 2. And then they started then the idea started taking place like, well, wow, we have all these characters. Okay, we got to roadmap this out so that we can get to the Avengers. How do we do that? Because, DC hasn't done that.
Right.
They haven't done it properly. And I'm not entirely sure what they want to do. And they've got nobody steering the ship for that.
Well, I mean, here's a good example, right? So like the Harley Quinn that was in Suicide Squad is not really like the Harley Quinn that's in Birds of Prey.
Mm-mm.
It's a much different kind of interpretation of that character. Now, the Birds of Prey and the Suicide Squad Harley Quinn, based on the trailers, look like they live in the same universe.
Absolutely.
I don't know yet because I haven't seen the film, but it looks like it's going in that direction. Mm-hmm. But you're correct. Like I guess what I'm saying is that if they just want to do standalone movies, they can do them. And if they're going to do it that way, then they have to let their filmmakers take the lead. And Absolutely. If Patty Jenkins doesn't work out by the time the third Wonder Woman turns around, maybe she walks away. But like, you need to let her do what she wants. You can't interfere. What I heard the stories from part 1 and part 2, you can't interfere. Right. Just let her do what she wants. If Absolutely. It doesn't work, you say, all right, we gave it a go. We don't like this. It doesn't seem like the audience are connecting to it either. Let's walk away from it.
Right.
And that's it. And at least she had her opportunity to do what she wanted to do. I think what I get with the fans for Snyder is that he didn't get that luxury. He basically got it for one movie. By the second one, they were like, no, we don't like this. And then by the time Justice League comes, just get it done. Just get it done. Get rid of this. Yeah. Get rid of this. Mm-hmm. So I understand. But again, this is business. This is Hollywood, baby. This is how that works. If it doesn't make money, if it doesn't generate enough box office, people are not going to continue it. But I do agree with everyone who says, if you hire someone to do a job, let them do their job. If you don't like the end product, you don't work with them again. That's it.
Yeah. And figure out what you want to do. Yeah. Like if you want to have a cohesive universe, then roadmap it out as to how you get to that point and then go further with it. If you want to just make individual movies, like it's really interesting to me that the only holdouts we have thus far are Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa for Aquaman. There is going to be a Flash movie with Ezra Miller, which I can't wait for, which would be really good. But what universe is this going to be in now? Like, how are they going to take this? Yeah. How are they going to take Flash, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman and move them forward now that the you got to give Snyder the credit. He was the orchestrator. He was the person who was mapping this out.
Right.
We had a 3-tier process for Justice League. It was supposed to be a trilogy, and they've now scrapped all this, but yet they've kept at least 3 of the people. You've lost Ben Affleck, and you lost Superman, Henry Cavill, which is a bummer to me because I actually enjoyed each in their roles. But you have holdouts from this Snyderverse, and what are they going to do so that it's not so obvious we're not in this universe anymore?
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on in the same vein of fandom, good old Comic-Con decided that it would be a great idea to come back and do an in-person convention on Thanksgiving weekend.
Thanksgiving Day weekend.
Yeah. And I mean, Demetri has a little story about this, his theory as to why they're doing this, which he has not shared with me. So I've been dying for the past 45 minutes to learn what this is. Go ahead, Demetri.
Well, my theory about, okay, so why they're doing an in-person thing. Okay, I can't argue about the week, but so let's break it down to Fandom. It's great, right? Scott, do you've collected comic books before in your
Oh
life?
yeah, absolutely.
You collect action figures, right? I collected comics. I collected action figures. That I'm a collector of pop culture artwork for various movies and stuff, right? So
Yep.
the big thing in the comic book world, in the action figure world, and posters, like the Mondo posters, the big thing is the variant. The variant is the limited edition. It's the one that costs a little more, but it's the one that makes that appreciates in value. So now Comic-Con is pushing the COVID variant. They want everybody to get the variant. They're going to make money. They're going to sell the COVID variant so that it can make money and appreciate in value, because there's a variance out there. So let's do an in-person on Thanksgiving Day weekend. All those families that couldn't get together last year, this year, be damned. We're going to Comic-Con, Mom and Dad. Sorry about Thanksgiving 2 times in a row, but I got to get me the COVID variant from Comic-Con that they're selling. It's the only reason that I can think of that Comic-Con has to be in person. It's for a variant.
Get your limited edition.
Get your limited edition.
Batman COVID edition.
Get your COVID edition. Get your COVID variant here in San Diego, where there will be no social distancing. Get that. Come on down, everybody. Come to San Diego. Let's have a super spreader event. It'll be awesome. Just be a super spreader hero. What the hell is Comic-Con thinking?
Listen. I know that we're in April now and things are looking good, but as someone who used to go to Comic-Con, their system of checking people, I mean, you literally you just anyone could sneak into Comic-Con. I'm just going to throw that out there because they don't have a check system really at all. If you're in the middle of a crowd, you just kind of push through. How would they ever check to see if someone was vaccinated or not? I mean, this just seems like it has disaster written all over it.
Yeah, and I also liken it to couples, and anybody who's watching who's done this. I mean, no offense, but couples who hold a wedding on a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Yeah, okay, I want to go to your wedding where I was going to go on vacation, but you don't. I just don't understand how tone deaf and obtuse the organizers are to what happened last year. Nobody could really travel. Nobody could spend the Thanksgiving Day Hollywood. Nobody could, Hollywood. They couldn't spend that holiday with their families. And now they're saying we're going to do in-person Comic-Con, a special edition. See, they're even calling it the special edition, Scott. My theory is true. It's the variant edition of Comic-Con. It's called Comic-Con Special Edition. So, but it's just silly to me that forget about the common folk who, number one, they'd have to spend money to number one, it's the hot Thanksgiving Day holiday travel,
is the worst. Yeah, it's the worst in history. It's always the worst in history. Day. Yeah.
So let's make people travel during the worst in history, and this is the first time, if people are fully vaccinated, that people can travel, so that that the airlines are going to screw us, right? So they're doing it the worst travel time. People haven't spent with their families. Forget about the little guy. Let's talk Hollywood. What stars are going to want to go to Comic-Con when they instead could be actually having a family Thanksgiving at their homes? They're going to want to, oh, I'm sorry, I got to duck out this weekend because I have to do a Hall H panel. It just makes no sense.
No.
Makes zero sense.
So what do you think the time frame is before this gets canceled?
They're still having a virtual event, right?
Yes.
In July?
In July, yeah.
Yeah, I think it either gets moved to a different date. Like the smart thing to do is you do it between the holidays. Because then, people will spend money gift giving or whatever, but you don't
But
do it
here's another
on
thing,
the
right?
holiday.
Here's another thing.
Yeah.
This date, not only is it dumb because of a holiday, it's smack dab in the middle of award season.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally from September in a traditional year, which we're trying to move towards, it seems like that seems to be the Hollywood path right now,
Right.
is that once Telluride and Venice start, which is right around Labor Day weekend in September, all the way through the end of the year, which is December, there is all Oscar movies. It's all Oscar campaigns. It's taking stars around, whether going up to Palm Springs or going to film festivals in New York or wherever, anywhere in between. So on top of that, it's like a double whammy. Like they're not even like paying attention to like the budget in the studios goes towards Oscar stuff and Golden Globes and Critics' Choice and all these other things. So why are they doing this? It's literally like it's such a bad money hungry decision. That's what it comes down to. It's like you said, it's the special edition. Let's see how much money we can get out of this. Just wait until next year. It's like how I feel about schools trying to open in April when school ends in June. Just it's 2 more months. Just what's the point of throwing kids back into a classroom? Why not just wait till September or August and just make sure everyone's vaccinated, and then you can put them in school?
Not that we're a show about LAUSD, but I spoke to a teacher about this, and the whole thing, they want to do it as a dry run, as a test run, to try to work out the kinks now, like through the summer, figure out what works, doesn't work it out through the summer so that come fall, they'll have a better understanding other than going blindly into fall. That's neither here nor there. You just had brought it up. But with Comic-Con, they could take the year off again. People would understand. Unless Scott, for this special edition, this variant Comic-Con, they're actually, unless they actually are going to go back to more of their roots. Zach can attest to this. Comic-Con, before the studios dug their claws in, so to speak, was a completely different animal. Comic-Con isn't what it is today. It wasn't when I first moved here, that's for sure. Yeah. Like you could get through the entire hall. It really was about pop culture, and it was about comic books. It was about action figures. It was about all that stuff. The movie stuff didn't factor in until a little bit later on. And then Hollywood really built Comic-Con up. So unless they think we could just have a comic book convention, what Comic-Con used to be. Yeah. Because you would have to anticipate it's going to be less crowds. Right. You would have to. I mean, again, I can't imagine people ducking out. I have to feel that the people are looking to be together with their families again. Especially for those transplants who live in Los Angeles or transplants who live anywhere in the world who couldn't get back during the holidays because of this pandemic. I think if given the choice, I think a high percentage are going to want to go home. Are going to want to spend it with family, not with, people who don't use deodorant. So I've been there, and I can say that because I've been stuck in those crowds. You have too. And I can't imagine a worse time in San Diego to hold this convention. And because you've got Black Friday going on.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know.
Oh so you have Thanksgiving, whatever movie is going to be opening up on Thanksgiving that week, right? You got Black Friday. People are going to be, the malls are going to be crazy. I usually go to San Diego for Thanksgiving. It's going to be a madhouse in downtown. But again, I can't imagine the crowds being what you and I, Zach, and everybody else who's been there. I can't imagine them being that way.
I can't either.
So I would suspect that they're going to, unless they've already signed a contract. I just don't. I don't know. I would suspect move the date.
Well, if it does happen, Netflix can get the cast of Knives Out 2 and 3 to come, so they can spend their $400+ million budget on that.
Yes, because they don't like Thanksgiving.
They don't like Thanksgiving. They're like, we don't need Thanksgiving. Don't stay at home and watch our movies with your families. Come to Comic-Con instead.
Come to Comic-Con.
So what do you think about that Knives Out deal?
Lionsgate has to be really pissed at this, because I remember when we saw Knives Out in Toronto, and there was already talk that Lionsgate was going to turn it into a franchise. Like, this is before it even came out during that. Right. It came out during Thanksgiving, right?
Yep.
And like, I remember like reading articles. I'm going, oh, they're going to milk Knives Out to the end. And then somebody there missed a little clause in the contract saying something to the effect of, oh, but after this movie, we can shop it around to whoever we want. And that's what they did. And they got $450 million for the next 2 movies, which the first movie was budgeted at what, 70?
Yeah, it wasn't that high.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, though, because we always question about like Netflix and them spending money. So these people get $450 million.
Oh, actually, it was only $40 million for the first Knives Out.
$40 million, okay. So $40 million bucks. And now those producers are getting $450 million. Now, I'm assuming that they don't get anything else. That's it. They just get all this money up front. They spend 50, 60, 70 million now to make, they'll spend onwards and upwards to maybe 200, maybe 150 to 200 to make 2 movies, right?
Yeah.
And then they bank the rest, because I don't know how Netflix monetizes it. I don't know how they get money out of it. But I got to be honest, if I were Lionsgate, I'd be going, what happened? Like, how did we let, it's the only thing they got. Like, now they really got to hope Spiral does well. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of money.
They lost a good shot at. Well, here's also the problem, right? Because we talked about this, and it wasn't pushed that hard for awards because of Lionsgate, but Knives Out was in the Oscar conversation. It was in won best cast at our award ceremony. I believe it won in other ceremonies as well. Mm-hmm. I know it was talked about for screenplay, some of the acting, of course, Daniel Craig. So, this to me is the evolution of Netflix now. Like, this is Netflix looking at, all right, here's something that people really love and people are going to come back to. And then maybe we can actually use this for some of our award campaigning, and we'll give it the Netflix push. And because the movie is going to be strong, it might actually go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but where's it? Like, here's what bums me out about it too. So it made 311 million, like worldwide, right? The original on a $40 million budget. It was a fantastic movie to go to during the Thanksgiving Day holiday weekend, and because it was so good, it stayed through the holidays. I mean, I don't know what kind of box office money is left on the table, being this won't get that full theatrical push. Maybe things by Thanksgiving. Look, we have been seeing an evolution of windows collapsing during this pandemic.
Yeah.
Godzilla vs. Kong, great example. But I don't know. I still think that you don't make $311 million worldwide because nobody liked your movie and it's stuck around for the holidays. It's, to me, I really enjoyed what Rian Johnson did, not from just a writing standpoint, but from a direction standpoint, and seeing that cast together on a big screen. It was a really good big screen movie to watch. And
I got something for you to think about, and I got
yeah,
something for
okay.
everyone who watches the show to think about. So, because of what's happening right now with the windows being broken, whether it's Universal, Disney, Warner Brothers with HBO Max, this has opened the door for Netflix. So
It
now
has. I mean,
Netflix can say to them, where before they were saying, we're not putting Netflix movies in movie theaters, Netflix can go turn around and be like, why not?
they have an argument.
HBO, you
That's
put
what they're saying, yeah.
HBO Max movies in movie theaters. You put Disney movies in movie theaters. You put Universal movies in movie theaters. So this might be the beginning of the new normal, where we're going to see more and more of stuff going to streaming and either opening on the same day or having those limited windows that we've been currently seeing. I think that they're going to have to really toy, and they won't know until enough studios do this and enough movies come out. But so far, looking at what I'm seeing so far with HBO, this looks like it's going in the right direction.
But we don't know that.
We don't know that because we don't have numbers.
Right.
But I don't know if we'll ever. Do you think we'll ever get to the point where we'll be able to have this conversation, actually have numbers, where people are going to reveal the numbers?
What numbers are we talking about? Viewing numbers? See, but what is that?
No, like how much money?
No.
No, you don't think so?
No, I don't. I don't, because I don't know how you put that percentage of a subscription into a single entity like that. I mean, maybe there are people out there much smarter than me who figure out those logarithms and whatever about how much of the subscription goes to Kong vs. Godzilla on streaming and how much I don't know.
But isn't it the same? Isn't it the same as like a video rental service? So like when you went to Blockbuster, you would know what the top grossing movie was?
Yeah, that's because you're individually paying for that rental. Remember, streaming, you're paying a subscription. You're not necessarily outside of Raya, right? Which is an individual rental. You can figure that out. But if you're putting it on like Godzilla vs. Kong, you can't, because people aren't paying for it. They're paying for this HBO Max subscription, but they're not paying for Godzilla vs. Kong individually. When you went to Blockbuster,
you're paying for it individually, right?
You paid for that. You paid $3, whatever it was. So we won't know. And with a Godzilla vs. Kong, again, the only way that I look at Godzilla vs. Kong right now is hope for movies coming back. That's all I'm looking at. More people are getting vaccinated, more people feeling comfortable going into the theaters. This seems to be the movie that's getting people out. But you said it at the top of the show. It's not a normal number, right? And it's not a normal number. It is a number to be happy about. Better yet, it's a number to be positive about. So until we get through other blockbusters like James Bond, things like that, to see how we're faring later on through the summer, it's going to be hard to say how much money is left on the table. Kong overseas is doing really well. So Warner Brother International has to be really happy about that. A movie like Knives Out, again, we don't know how much going into the new normal, as you said, and I agree, Netflix now has an argument to say, okay, give us 45 days before we start streaming. But again, Netflix is going to have to come to that table too.
Yeah.
Right? Because they have a history of disruption, and that's what this is. That's what just happened. They just disrupted the studio system again by more or less taking this movie out. The original producers from, I think it was MRC, I think it was, it's not even known whether they'll be able to come back to work on this.
We've seen this during the pandemic, right? I mean, like Coming to America going over there to Amazon. We've seen the Kumal movie go over to Netflix. The new one with Chris Miller, the animated movie that comes out in a couple weeks.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That one went from Sony over to Netflix. So we're seeing a lot of this switch over where stuff is kind of changing paths. So I don't know. I mean, everything is kind of it's very interesting to kind of like analyze and focus on this. And a lot of people should be focusing on this because it's really no one knows where the future of entertainment is going at this point.
No, and to your point though, Scott, what you have to think about is what was the studio unloading, right? Studios lost, a bunch of money this 2020, right? So offloading these movies to Netflix, who is willing to pay, in a sense, for Sony, for Paramount, it mitigated loss in a sense. There's still loss, but selling them for the prices that they did, and Netflix saying, "Okay, we'll take it." Netflix wants content. That's all they want. Content. This looks like it. Oh, Coming to America, Eddie Murphy. Great. For the studio, they're getting money. Like, I always believed that this was a great formula for Netflix and a studio. If the studio had sort of kind of a clunker on their hands, like where they saw the movie and said, I don't know if we're going to make our money back. Like, how do we mitigate this? How do we save money? Hey, Netflix, we have this movie, like that Cloverfield awful sequel that had cast, but you sell it off to mitigate. Then the studio doesn't have to do a premiere. They don't have to do red carpet. They don't have to do they don't have to do any advertising.
Right. But see, the evolution of streaming has proven to be different now, right? So like now they don't need studios to give them their crap material. They make their own crap material. That they almost like they already have like tiers, right? They almost know like here's a bad movie that we have that we're going to put zero effort into pushing this out. I mean, that Bad Trip is a good example of that, right? Sure. Like, so they literally they put it out and whatever. If people talk about it, talk about it. If it doesn't go anywhere, who cares? And then they have movies like The Kissing Booth or To All the Boys I Loved Before, where they're kind of like a middle of the road movies where some people are going to love them. Some people are not going to watch them at all. But that's the evolution that's where I think streaming is kind of missing what studios used to do in the past, where they had all those evolutions of like different types of movies, where now they focus so heavily on the big budget movies that they forgot about those mid-scale movies or those lower ones. Streaming is now kind of coming back and like, we're taking them. We'll take all. Yeah. We'll have our Dwayne Johnson and Gal Gadot $200 million action movie with Red Notice, but we're going to take that romantic kissing booth movie that was for the teenagers, and then we're going to take some like little independent movie that no one's ever going to talk about, but like 40-year-old version, and we're going to put it on the platform.
Right, and don't forget about
their love it, and no one will know about it.
And don't forget about their series.
Yes,
too, like Queen's Gambit. So they have a lot of content, right? What we don't know is, and this, I guess, to me is just like the biggest bummer for Knives Out, is it already built up this fandom. So we know that people will watch it on streaming. We know they will because they love the first one, right? How we'll never know the lost box office.
No, we won't
on it, and that's the sad thing. And like I said, I don't know. It makes me wonder. It's on one hand, I say Lionsgate didn't see this coming, but then I say, how did they miss that clause? Because they were talking sequel. Right. They were talking with Ryan John. They were talking sequel.
They did a whole social media campaign about it. Remember, there was like the social media campaign came out and was like, "What would you want the sequel to be called?"
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they can't be too happy that this happened. So on one hand, I was wondering, was Knives Out just a distribution deal for Lionsgate, where Lionsgate just got upfront money and they really got maybe a small percentage of whatever box office if it hits certain levels? Or did they get like the distributor, like studio produced? Like, I don't know now. I'm so confused because, again, if I were Lionsgate, I'd be upset at losing this. And I'd be figuring out who missed this. Like, somebody fell, where we talk about Warner Brothers not having anybody at the wheel, somebody at Lionsgate fell asleep at the wheel and they weren't paying attention, or they just said Netflix came in with a number that was so high that Lionsgate said, we're out. We can't, we want to do business with you. We can't pony up $450 million for two movies. That's not really in Lionsgate's wheelhouse. Even when you look at a tentpole like Hunger Games, they weren't costing $400 million to make. So it's sad. And to your earlier point too, it was the kind of movie that wasn't Spiral. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be picking on Spiral, but it was fresh and people loved it. Yeah. And it was quality. Knives Out was not a B movie.
No.
They had a quality director, and
that's everything.
And
I think this is to be continued, but I will say that with all the changes we're seeing within the industry right now, in terms of stories being told, filmmakers given opportunities, I'm not too surprised by this. I think we're going to see a lot more of this happen over the next couple of months and years. It's already starting to show, and I mean, we just real quick, and then we'll end. But you know, this is almost, we can take a film festival, for example. Mm-hmm. Film festivals used to be studio darlings. Like, it used to go, the Sony Classics of the world and the Fox Searchlights. They used to go to a Sundance or South by or whatever, and they used to buy, and they used to get a steal. Like, they used to go focus. They would buy something, and they would get, take a risk on like $5-6 million. And they're saying, all right, we're going to buy, I don't know, Clerks. We're going to buy Clerks. And Clerks then turns into this cultural phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Now you have so many movies that play there that are already purchased, that are just kind of like seeing how they track and what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. And then the few that they don't have, those surprise ones, you have these bidding wars. I mean, we've been hearing about this for years after years now. And traditional studios, because they have that as their bread and butter, right? Like, a Searchlight can't go out and just spend $25 million on a coda.
No.
Because they can buy 4 other movies for what they're going to pay for one. So they don't do that anymore. And now Apple has that, and Apple will have an amazing award campaign because they have the money to do so.
Right. And I think it was Fox Searchlight. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they were the blueprint for how not to buy a movie. It was
Me and Earl and the Dying Girl.
Huh?
Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl.
Well, okay, there was that, but there was before that the one with that Zahn kid, that Texas something, not Paris, Texas. But it was a movie that they spent a ton of money on, like $65 million on, and nobody saw it when it came out.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Me and Earl being like a disaster for them, because I love that movie when I saw it at Sundance, and then like when I saw the deal, and then I watched it come out, and I was like, nobody knows what this is. And it had no awards push at all. Like, it was like wow, they really, I mean, it's too much of a risk now. But for a streamer, it's just like everything else. Like, if it's like they're like, we win some, we lose some.
And if they can afford it, I get it. This is what I love about this type of conversation, is because now going forward, right? I want to see not only how Godzilla Kong does. Going forward, I want to see how, like, other tentpole movies that aren't HBO Max, right? That don't have that stream So what do you know what our next big movie is that's coming out? There's got to be
What's not
something
HBO?
that's not HBO, that's not Warner Brothers that's coming out. It's got to be something coming out in
It's
like middle of
May.
this month or
Something in May.
May.
Yeah,
Is it
because
Universal?
Unholy comes out today, but we can't count that because no one's going to see that movie.
No, but
it must
yeah,
be not Black Widow, Corella, right?
yeah, but they already said that they're going
They
day
are.
and
They're
date
going
on
digital.
that.
I don't know. You mean one that's just strictly going
One
into a
that's
movie
going
theater?
strictly to movie theater.
I don't know if there's been anything that's been
Like,
announced
does
because Quiet
Universal have?
Place is at the end of May, but that's going to
Right.
have the 45 days in theatrical, and then they're going to go to the streaming service. But I don't know if there's anything that's coming out where they don't have some sort of deal in place at this point.
Yeah, because that to me that's your indicator. How comfortable in May are people going to feel going back to the movies, right? And how much does a movie make without that? Say, I don't know if there's a 45-day window deal on something, like, because I've always maintained that once we're behind this, right, that people are going to go back. It could take time, but people will go back. Godzilla vs. Kong's a good example. It's good to build on. But now I want to see a movie that's not tied into HBO Max or has a deal with Disney Plus. I want to see how that movie opens up, because I'm telling you, once somebody figures out that there could potentially be money left on the table for a movie, things will yet again change, because exhibitors aren't going to want to give up, like, they're not going to want to give up a movie when they're making the most out of the rental deal at that time.
Yeah.
And we're definitely in the most of interesting times as far as exhibition and distribution and as movie fans go. But I think if people are looking at, we're going to hear all through the weekend about Godzilla versus Kong. Start thinking about the future. Think about like Easter. Start thinking about May, June, and July. James Bond, isn't that coming out in the summertime, or did they push that to November?
They pushed it to November.
Okay. I know we have some big tentpole movies coming out for the summertime.
Well, I mean, Quiet Place is obviously going to make more money than Corella. I'm going to call that now. I'm going to call that right on this show right now.
100%. Absolutely.
But I think that's the first weekend where there's stuff that really, really outside of HBO product that's going to be there. Because then Conjuring comes out in the middle of the summer, which is going to do well.
But that's HBO Max.
HBO again. I mean, Disney has Black Widow in July 7th, or July 3rd. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything on the schedule of note that we can actually compare this to yet.
You know what? Let's well, we should do a Trending in Hollywood 360 where we come back to this next week. Like, all we have to do is look up a movie release schedule.
We'll look at that
and see what's going on, because I think it's very important. And I think as movie fans, you're going to get to choose how you want to watch it. And I think the box office is going to tell people like going to the movies. And that's why I really think that this weekend is kind of important, but I think it's very positive too. And I think for us as movie fans and as people who review movies and who want that experience back, Kong versus Godzilla, Godzilla versus Kong is just that wonderful diversion. It's that distraction, and people are paying for it all over the world. This is how I want to see our box office climb. This is a story that's going to continue. It's to be continued, and I think it's going to be continued for, I think, another year.
Yeah.
So
all right. Well, thank you for watching. This will be continued next week. We'll kind of open up with this topic, kind of like we did last week, where we ended on something, and we'll open it up next week with this. And that's it. Like, comment, share this video. We appreciate everyone watching, and thanks
for not being toxic fans.
Yeah, thanks for not being toxic fans, and thanks for your respectful comments. We appreciate it. So until next Friday, we'll see you next time.